Serving as Stephen King's 22nd book, it, on the surface, is about an evil, shape-shifting monster who preys on the deepest, darkest fears of young children. The cosmic entity lures them by taking the form of a clown, Pennywise, before turning into the thing that scares them the most. After exploiting their fears, it feasts on their own terrors before killing them. As terrifying as it sounds on the surface, though, the story takes an even scarier turn as it reveals its many thematic layers. The more one reads the Stephen King book, the more it claws deeper into one's own forgotten fears, traumas, and childhood vulnerabilities. It not only scares but also awakens a melancholic nostalgia, which the 5-word quote above perfectly captures. The heartbreaking Stephen King quote signifies an irreversible loss of innocence. A young character named Eddie thinks, grown-ups are the real monsters, when the harsh reality of how adults can be as scary as a sinister supernatural entity hits him. The realization marks a major milestone in the young character's story because it confirms the irreversible loss of his childhood wonder and innocence. The pervasive sense of apathy and immorality in the book's central town, Derry, primarily stems from Pennywise influences and schemes. However, often, they are also reflections of the societal and systemic failures of Derry. For instance, Eddie and his friends from the Losers Club become Pennywise targets but suffer even more when they are victims of abuse and neglect from the adults in their homes. Pennywise, in itself, is a terrifying soulless creature. However, it becomes a mere narrative device in the Stephen King story to highlight how the young characters feel betrayed by their own protectors. The adults, who are supposed to embody everything from safety to unconditional love, subject the young ones to monstrosities. As a result, Eddie and his friends are forced to shed their innocence and face their fears by themselves. The tragic line from Stephen King's It echoes in Welcome to Derry and The Institute. Traces of similar themes surrounding childhood neglect and abuse can be found in many Stephen King books, including Carrie, Firestarter, and The Institute. Two Stephen King TV adaptations, The Institute and It, Welcome to Derry, premiered in 2025. In both, children are subjected to such atrocities by the adults that they are forced to believe that grown-ups are the real monsters. The characters in The Institute are held captive in a facility by adults who exploit their supernatural powers to serve a perceived greater good. Meanwhile, Welcome to Derry's young characters are treated as unreliable witnesses and often dismissed or ignored by adults even when they desperately cry for help. Both Stephen King shows are chilling reminders of how humans can be the worst kind of monsters when they create and promote systems that fail to protect their children. Stephen King's heartbreaking It quote explains one nagging Derry mystery. In both the book and the HBO show, adults in Derry experience a sense of amnesia. They often struggle to recall key events of their town's history and even their own childhood in Derry. This happens partly due to Pennywise's malevolent influence on the town, warping memory and perception of anything traumatic or frightening. At the same time, though, the loss of memory in Derry and the adults' monstrosities cannot be separated in the Stephen King story. The amnesia experienced by most adults in Derry highlights how, even without the overarching influence of a real monster, they choose to turn their heads away from societal evils like bullying, racism, and violence. Since these internal monsters are never addressed or held accountable in the town in the Stephen King book, the external one misuses them to grow stronger and sustain its cycles of evil.